everyone.
This is Alice from Beijing. I'm so glad to meet you on ICANX Talks this Friday. This is Alice Haixia from Peking University. Actually, from last year, I started this ICANX Talks. It's like amazing. We try to invite the top scientists from the whole world to use their technology and their science to connect the world and the universe, to let everyone know all this beautiful science and let everyone, to follow all these top scientists. Our keywords is science and technology. Our another keyword is we try to promote science fiction and promote scientists to be the superstar. So we are so proud that we have many response. We have many people answer this call. Scientists from the whole world join us and from different continentals, and they come here to give their talks, freely. And all these works was get a big numbers since last April 17. Till now, last week we have 62 weeks and non-stop, talks. We are speakers from 5 continentals and audience from 5 continentals. We have speakers, especially all these wonderful speakers from 15, countries and regions. We have speakers over 100. It's 130. And the most week we have many people to build this, talks. Now more than 500,000. That's really a big numbers. Till now, I hope I not surprise you. Till now, this 1.5 year, we already attract 50 million, people on ICANX talks. Every week, we have more than 100,000 people watching these talks and to see the beautiful work from the scientists and the beautiful talk from different people and different areas. We are really great, support from the whole world. And today is a big day because today is the start of our August program. In August, we have, 5 speakers. Today we have Liangyi Chen, was my colleague in Peking University. And next week we have Terry, was from Northwestern University, from US. And the week after is our first ICANX Young Scientist Award. We have awarded to 2, young scientists. One is from UCAD. I must tell you this was one university, one important university in Africa. And Bala will be present for that. We have another award is MIT Media Lab, is Dublina Soccer. Yes, so both of them will get on the stage to deliver the talks and August 20. Then in the last week of August is our neighborhood. It's my better friends, Professor Liu Jin from Tsinghua University will deliver a talk for the liquid metal. So this was our August plan. I hope you enjoy that. And to start this, we with really strong team here, powerful team for this start of August. So first, let me introduce our host, moderator here, Professor Yang Lan. Professor Yang Lan was very famous in the photonics field, and she got her bachelor degree was from University of Science and Technology in China. And she got her PhD was from Caltech, and now is a superstar in Washington University in St. Louis. And she delivered a lot of new findings in photonics, and she also very active in this field, be win a lot of awards, and also be one of the top journalists, and published many papers. And we are so proud to have Yang Lan, our moderator. So Professor Yang Lan, please.
Yeah, Professor Zhang, thanks a lot for your information. It is my great honor to serve as moderator for today's ICANX talk, which is providing an impressive platform to promote the scientists and the work. And it's my pleasure to be part of it. and introduce today's speaker, Dr. Liangyi Chen. He is a Boyer Professor of Peking University. His lab has been focusing on some closely related directions. For example, the development of high spatial temporal resolution fluorescence imaging technologies and a quantitative algorithm for image analysis, as well as the application of those technologies. So far, his lab has developed numerous techniques, including ultrasensitive Heisen structured illumination microscopy for live cell super resolution imaging, and the Sparse deconvolution algorithm for expanding the spatial resolution of fluorescent microscope limited by optics, and also super resolution fluorescence assisted diffraction computational tomography for revealing the three-dimensional landscape of cellular structure, and also fast high resolution miniature two-photon microscopy, just name a few. Although I'm not in the field of microscopy, I truly admire those working on a topic that involves knowledge in multidisciplinary fields. Microscopy is one of them. More importantly, it's a critical tool for us to understand the world beyond what we can see by eyes. So today, we're fortunate to have Professor Liangyi Chen, who has made a serious important technical contribution to the state-of-the-art imaging technologies, to talk about his work and also share his vision about the next generation live cell super resolution microscopy. So please join me to welcome Professor Liangyi Chen.
Thank you. Thank you for the very kind invitation. Now I share my screen. Yeah. So first I would like to thank Alice and thank Professor Yang Lan for the kind introduction. And it's a great honor and to be able to give this talk to share our work with everyone. I'm Liangyi Chen from Peking University, and my talk title is The Next Generation of Live Cell Super Resolution Microscopy. We are talking about new mechanism and the new application directions. So my lab has been focused on finding the ideal fluorescence microscope for live cell imaging for quite some time. We all know that the spatial resolution, temporal resolution, phototoxicity, and field of view is just like different edges of the pyramid. So you cannot have them all. So our focus or our point of view is we try to make it working in live cell imaging. So from the in vivo to the organoid or to cellular or subcellular or molecular level. So today I'm going to share with everyone three works concerning and super resolution at the single cell level. So first we want to focus on live. Why live? I mean, for live, I think live cell super resolution imaging is very important because it may, as far as I can see, provided the quest for the ultimate solution to the life science problem. Being live, that you will be able to answer where do I come from or where will I go? From these two questions, that will define who I am and what is the meaning of life. That is to say, by visualizing dynamics of cellular proteins and molecular in time and space, we are going to postulate their function, significance, and future fates. And this is all happens because we can see how they move. So for that, oops. This is the panelist. Is it the? Oops, sorry.
Yeah, so you must have some big, image or something, pictures in that. It's okay. Try again.
Okay. Should I? Oops.
Yeah, you try again.
So I try again. Sorry.
No problem, that happens.
So I start from what I left, or so can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly, no problem. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So shall I start from the beginning?
No. Yeah, you
Okay.
just go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
So first thing I would like to share with you guys is the Heisen structural illumination microscopy for live cell super-resolution microscopy. This is the work that we collaborate with Professor Tan Shan in Huazhong University of Science Technology, and also 3 PhD students of mine, Xiaoshuai Huang, Jun Cao, and Liujun Li. We all know that super-resolution microscopy won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2014 for their contribution for the development of super-resolved fluorescence microscopy. However, I think there are problems with current super-resolution microscopy is they are very difficult to use. Why they are difficult to use and difficult to be applied to the biological science research community? I think it's 3 fundamental problems. First, more resolution need more photons, and more photons may cost more photo damage. So that means only short-term super-resolution microscopy in live cell is possible. Second, more photons need more time. That also means that your temporal resolution is slow. And third, many kinds of super-resolution microscopy need special dye labeling protocols and complicated procedures. That means not everyone can use it. And also I think there's one fundamental limit when we're talking about live cell super-resolution imaging. The criteria is a Nyquist criteria. What is that? So think about this. So whatever resolution you will get, you have to measure with half of the resolution size of the pixel. Take an example here. If we want to have a confocal microscope with a resolution of 200 nanometer, that actually means your pixel size should be 100 nanometer on the XY. And if you want to get a 500 nanometer Z resolution, then your Z sectioning distance should be 250 nanometers to ensure sufficient Nyquist sampling rates. Then we want to increase the resolution by two folds on X, Y, and Z. That means you also need to divide this volume, this box, into 8 small voxels. So provided you have the same number of the fluorophore, then you need to increase your light exposure by 8-fold to ensure the same contrast. That means more photo damage and photo bleaching. On the other hand, most super-resolution technology need use trade time for the spatial resolution. Take an example also shown here. If we have a mitochondrial at one frame is here and other frame is here, and the low resolution, it's okay because they are in the same, it's in the same box. But if we have improved the resolution, then they are in 2 different boxes. So means if we don't have sufficient temporal resolution increase, then your increase of spatial resolution is meaningless because your mitochondria will still be blurred. So this actually, I think, is very important when we think about the live cell super resolution imaging, that we need to have a matched spatial resolution and temporal resolution instead of focusing solely on the spatial resolution. So because of this, we choose super resolution technology that actually did not win the Nobel Prize, developed first by Mats Gustafsson and Rein Heisman in 2000. And its principle is, instead of using a uniform illumination, use patterned illumination, black, white, like sinusoidal illumination, and when this illumination is not uniform, its frequency will be integrated interact with the intrinsic frequency of the sample being imaged. So you will see in your microscope OTF. So I will skip the basic principles, as you can actually check it on online resource everywhere, but focus on what we have done. So a general pipeline of structural illumination pipeline is something like this. For two-dimensional structural illumination, we need to take 9 images with 3 patterns like this side, or this and this side and this side. And on each angle, you also have 3 different faces. So totally, we got we acquire 9 images, and we do a FFT, Fourier transformation of these images, and we separate computational separates the high frequency components, and we reassemble into extended region and do inverse Fourier transformation, which is a Wiener inverse filtering, and then we get the high resolution super-illusion images. So from this pipeline, I want to emphasize that by doing this procedure, we only acquire the super resolved image after all this computation. So it's a computational super-illusion methods. In 2015, Dr. Dongli in Eric Betz's lab published paper on Science showing that structural illumination is photo efficient as compared to other types of super-illusion methodology. But however, it's also prone to reconstruction artifacts, as others point out. As shown here, is LIFAC EGIP structure should be linear structure, but after enlarge it, you will see that this kind of net-like the structure. So when we first approach the problem, we think we need a systematically understanding of different source of artifacts in order to make this technology usable or quantifiable. So we have actually listed different types of artifacts, but among all the artifacts we have found, we found this one is kind of unexpected. As the example shown here, these are fluorescence beads, and we can reconstruct with the correct parameters with Wiener inverse filtering. But as we increase the noise from these images to this extent, like 400 average amplitude fluctuations, as enlarged here, this 1, 2, 3, 4 fluorescent beads become actually like this irregular structure everywhere. So why does this happen? Then we can examine that when we do this inverse Fourier transformation, we assume that all the fluorescence come actually from the object itself, from fluorescent object. But in reality, this your recording device also have noise. It will read out some number, even you have no illumination. It also have dark current. So when the fluorescent signal is high, it's not a big problem. But if you want to shorten the exposure, you reduce the photo dosage, then your fluorophore, the fluorescence emitted from your fluorophore is comparable with the noise, then it becomes the problem, because not only the signal get amplified, but the noise also got amplified. So we think these random artifacts are actually intrinsic to the Wiener reconstruction. So now we have the problem, we have to find a way. So we all well known, everybody deal with imaging processing knows this powerful plugin or procedure. On the left, it's an image heavily corrupted with the noise, but once we use a medium filter, we can get this lady's image. Why? Because when we do a medium filter, we replace each pixel with its three multiple by 3 pixel, the mean value of this 9 pixels, this neighboring 9 pixels, and then we can reconstruct the lady's photo. By doing this, we actually assume that the signal is continuous in space, in the XY space. For example, hair, a pixel in the hair would look much like its neighbor, and a pixel in the clothes would also look like its neighbor. So here, by doing this kind of processing, we are assuming this prior knowledge. Similarly, if we look at the broker market, the bond market, you see every day they fluctuate. But if you are just using a moving average and plot the moving average during a period of time, you get this yellow line, and this yellow line is actually the trend of this market, how it goes. By doing this, we also assume that the signal or the trend of the market is continuous in time. So that's we call it a spatial temporal continuity, which also has been stated by Gottfried Leibniz like 300 years ago. He actually says, nothing takes place suddenly, and it is one of my great and best confirmed maxim that nature never makes lips. So this is really, really old but useful prior knowledge. So having confirmed that we can use this prior knowledge, we made hardware improvement on our microscopes, but most importantly, we developed an algorithm. We moved from the previous Vena inverse filtering and to this Heisen deconvolution, in which we use the continuity. This R Heisen is the penalty term, which we consider the continuity along x, y, and xt to constrain the reconstruction results. By applying this penalty or Heisen reconstraint, now we can achieve 10 times less photon, as the example shown here with the labeling of the live back EGIP of the actin filaments. If we do 7 milliseconds exposure, the image will look like this one. However, if we reduce the photo dosage by more than 10 folds, like 0.5 milliseconds per frame exposure, then you see in the panel B, the otherwise should be continuous linear structure become intermediate with the fluorescence intensity fluctuated up and down, and this fluctuation are caused by the noise or artifacts which can be suppressed by our Heisen deconvolution algorithm, but not by other types like TV, total variation, or Richardson-Lucy deconvolution algorithms. So with this, we prove that we can use 10 less photons to get the same resolution image. Then one application is now we can really image really fast, because we only need a fraction of the photons we need previously. So here we show that we can use rolling reconstruction. We operate at 300 Hertz super-resolution imaging speed. Then we will be able to observe an insulin granule, how it diffuse with the plasma membrane. On the top panel, you see a turf image, but on the down panel, you see how this vesicle approaches and become brighten up because they are labeled by VAMP2 fluorine and form. We can see the formation of fusion pore, enlarged fusion pore, which confirm what had been observed by a EM like 30 years ago. But in addition to observe this intermediate structures, because we are doing in live, we saw how it processed to this whole process. And when we submit this paper to the reviewer, and the reviewer, one of the reviewer asked this question that he said it's nice to have a very fast imaging, but usually in our case we don't need go so fast. We do like 1 Hertz imaging is surely enough. How do your imaging paradigm helps? So we really appreciate their suggestion, and we show the comparison. Here we use CO7 cell, again label with LIFAC EJP. And for the conventional SIM, we use 7 minutes exposure. For our Heisen SIM, we only use 0.5 milliseconds exposure, but their temporal resolution is the same, 1 Hertz. But you will see for the conventional SIM, it actually, your image become aberrated at the 5 after you record it for 5 minutes, but for our Heisen SIM, we can actually record it like for an hour. As you see the intensity here, and the fluorescence intensity doesn't really change very much. So this is also the first time that we show that for supralution live cell imaging study that we can record it almost as long as you wish. And finally, we also show, besides imaging very long-term live cell imaging, we show our Heisen SIM would be very valuable for this photosensitive organelle, such as mitochondria, as you will see here. Although the resolution, the physical resolution is not as high as statostorm, but it can clearly reveal mitochondrial crystal structures in live cells. So a short summary of this part, we have a very photo-efficient supralution microscope with the photo dosage 1 to 3-fold order less than even as compared to the point scanning confocal microscope. And with a resolution like 85 to 100 nanometer, it can very fast, it can do long-term live cell imaging, and it can be used to image photosensitive organelles. And this published on 2018 Nature Biotechnology. But after that, we often encounter 2 questions. One is, can we further push the spatial resolution of live cell supralution microscopy despite its speed? Can we push the spatial resolution further? And the second question is, can we actually obtain the same resolution, not just at the cell surface and at the turf, but also at the cell interior, like nucleus, for example? It has a lot of scattering organelles. At that time, I say no, it's not possible. Why? Because we can see some of the example of the state of art, like this on live cell storm, on mitochondria. These are live cell stat on the mitochondria and ER, and also classroom-coded peats. And these are nonlinear SIM on under the turf mode on the actin filaments. So these are some example of the state of the art. And to put it in a summary, we have a table like this. At that time, you see, no matter what kind of supralution microscopy physical resolution limit it is, but in reality, when they are using on live cell, they claim the resolution is about 60 nanometers. And to achieve that 60 nanometer resolution, they need a very long time. Like for even the shortest for the nonlinear sim, it takes like 0.4 seconds or to 2 seconds. And we all know that the number of the photons available per second is limited. So at that time, I say, okay, we have, although our Heisen sim only have a spatial resolution of 90 nanometer, but we can push as fast as 0.002 seconds, 2 milliseconds. So I think we have already reached the limit. So at that time, I say, I think it's not possible. But I'm really happy later that I was wrong at that time. So this comes to my second part of the work, which is the sparse deconvolution for computational superillusion imaging, which I think would be the trends. And this work is our collaborating with Professor Haoyu Li and Dr. Weisong Zhao and Shi Qun and Liu Ju. And these two guys are from Harbin University of Technology. So before we go to that, we have to know that besides using optics or probes to improve resolution, spatial resolution, there are also another category has been people have been thinking: is there any way that to mathematically improve optical superillusion? And it's also a long trend, go back as far further as to 1960s, when people first proposed mathematically bandwidth exploration based on the analytical function continuation when the object being imaged has a finite size. And in 1970s, they come iterative Richardson-Lucey deconvolution. People all use these days, but may not notice its characteristic. And in 2009, people are talking about the compression sensing paradigm that may enable superillusion in proof of principle experiments. But before we go to these mathematical methods, we first come back a little bit to see why people think this is very unlikely to improve resolution by computational algorithms. So the resolution actually is defined like you have a point source at here, A. Your point source emits fluorescence in all directions, 360 angles, but only the light emitted through this NA are collected by your objective. Because your objective, I think, did not collect all the information emitted, all the light emitted from this point source. So when it come back focused again, it focuses into a point spread function that is not indefinitely small. It's actually correlate with the light you collected. So you see the logic. What I think is you didn't collect all the light originated from your point source in the first place. That's why you cannot perfectly retrieve back all the information, because some information is lost. And if we talk about the image formation process in the frequency domain, in the spatial domain, it's like your object convolved with PSF, you got a blurred image. But in the frequency domain, your FFT object and multiply by your OTF, then you got, because your OTF, out of your OTF, you have zero. It's a low pass filter. So all the information outside of your OTF is lost. So how shall we retrieve back the lost information? Is that possible to deblur it or to recover the lost information? If we come back to the Wiener deconvolution or inverse filtering, you see it's very simple. This is your G is your FFT image, H is OTF, F is FFT object. So in order to get your objects, you just do a division, G divided by H, then you got unblurred your object. However, if we just doing something, some division like this, you see we will never be able to recover the lost information. Why? Because the H is only come to here outside of this OTF is all 0, so you cannot divide it by 0. Okay, so this linear inversion process ensure that you have no resolution improvement whatever. However, in 1970s, Richardson and Lucy independently proposed on the astronomy this kind of deconvolution process, which is instead of operating in the frequency domain, they proposed like we can operate it in the spatial domain, so we can hypothesize F object first and convolve with our point spur function and compare it with the image you got and divide it and subtract the difference and use it as the next step, the delta increase for the next step. So iteratively and after each iteration, it will approximately the image you got. So by doing this, we see that ultimately we actually bypass the problem of division by 0. So theoretically, it may be possible to extend the resolution out of OTF. So indeed, people have working on this direction, and this is one paper published on astronomy journal. They show sometimes this kind of iteration deconvolution can improve resolution, as you see here, the twin star. After you deconvolve, it becomes clearly visible. But most oftenly, as this solar granulation structure shown here, after deconvolution, you only get increase of contrast, but no even finer or intricate structure. So in our in the very famous textbook Fourier Optics, Joseph Goodman actually conclude here that Rayleigh diffraction limit represent a practical frontier that cannot be overcome by applying bandwidth exploiting methods on image obtained from conventional imaging systems. So this is the conclusion. And people think this is highly unlikely that you can get any resolution increase because you don't have the information there. That's the hard to believe part. So what we did first is trying to show other people that RL deconvolution can indeed increase resolution. As an example shown here, these are synthetic image without any noise. So these are the image itself for FFT image. You see they have different frequency. If we convolve with PSF or OTF filtered, like as observed through a microscope, then the image become blurred. Like this periodical lines become like a straight line. However, this image has ground truth because we sensitized made it. And if we do iterative deconvolution, RL deconvolution for 20,000 times, and actually we can recover this periodical line, although their amplitude are still different from the ground truth. If we do like 2 million times deconvolution, then here definitely we see the extension of the frequency, high frequency information, and also the structure now become much more like the ground truth now. So from this experiment, we actually show that RL deconvolution can work if the image has no noise. However, if the image do have noise, what will happen? as we see here, these are paired lines at different distance. We synthetically add some noise in it, and if we use IL deconvolution, then we cannot extract more information out of it. If we do many times of iterative deconvolution, then our line will become distorted with a lot of artifacts. This is actually what we will meet if we use IL deconvolution for many times, for many iteration times, if we deal with real world sample. So the problem actually becomes, can we really improve resolution in real world microscopic samples with noise? So we argue that besides sparsity, besides of continuity, we argue that another feature we may use is sparsity. Sparsity is something like this. So take an example of a nuclear pore structure, and if we label the different space here, something like this, we label this this red spot here. If we observe and the wide field is a large blur, confocal a small blur, area scan an even small blur, instead become a ring. If we observe and the storm, it becomes like a spots-like structure. So from this actually image, we actually can see that when we have high resolution, your PSF become narrower. That means the fluorescence, your fluorescent image become more sparse. So we argue that sparsity is another general prior knowledge that may be used to constrain the reconstruction process. So therefore, we develop a two-step sparse deconvolution algorithm. We use the sparsity, both sparsity and the continuity as the prior knowledge to constrain the reconstruction results first, and then we do iterative deconvolution like RL to further improve the resolution. So the key equation now from this one becomes this two-step process, which I did not have time to go in detail, but I can just show you the data. So here, again, synthetic image with paired line. We show here at a normal noise, like here, when RL failed to improve resolution, sparse can still improve resolution to like 60 nanometers. However, if your noise become even heavier, then even sparse cannot extend resolution. So that means your resolution in limit is actually limited by your signal noise ratio here. But this is a radical claim. So we actually do more experiments to confirm this as required by the reviewer. Here, we have the DNA origami structure, different space by 60, 80, 100, 120 nanometers. And we split in two. One use sparse sim, the other use ROSE, which is a kind of storm-like technology. We show both superresolution method can get the same distance, and also the distribution, because they are random mixed within the field of view, are also the same, showing that we can get their numbers correctly. And that is this is the line structure from the Argo slides. You can also see that when 2D sim can only reveal like 100 nanometer paired line, and your RL also same. If you run multiple iteration, then you will see that your paired line become distorted. So you only see, you fail to discriminate 60 nanometer distant paired line, but sparse deconvolution can recover this information. And the sparse can also recover the like complex structure as the ER or microtubules being expanded you can see as compared with the sparse deconvolved example, or using 2D sim on expanded sample as ground truth. So having confirmed this, we now can see how this can lead to this compared to previous methods. So with sparse sim, we only use 9 images. Now we can actually recover caveolin structure, a ring-like caveolin structure, which actually looks very similar like previously using nonlinear sim, use 35 frames to and photo activable the protein to acquire the similar structures with much less. And also sparsity, when we reduce the sparsity, also means we can reduce out of focal light efficiently. So here we have an example shown here, 3 different organelle structure like lysosome and lipid droplet. You see before and after sparse deconvolution that this method can effectively remove out of focus haze. So then we can image really dense structure like actin structure. On the left is the turf actin structure. On the right is our 2D sim. You see the actin structure is much denser than as compared to if you only observe under turf illumination mode. And we can quantify the resolution actually here using a methodology borrowed from the EM, the FRC, Freer ring correlation, which actually shows from the 2D sim to sparse sim, we have resolution increased to 60 nanometers. And the actin meshes quantified by the sparse deconvolution also agree with previous data on storm, on fixed cell. So with this, we want to further check how this need take to the new insight, like in the nuclear membrane. So we all know that within the on the nuclear membrane, there are nuclear pore structure. If you label with different protein, they have different size. And this is on live cell. For the first time, we'll be able to see this ring like the nuclear pore structures, and how they are fluctuated on the nuclear membrane in live cell change position. And also we can label different protein like NUP 35, 98, 93, and 107. They give different diameters, and these diameters actually also agree with previous measurement with different other super-resolution microscope techniques in fixed cell. But the difference is now we can see it in live cell in real time. So at this unprecedented spatial resolution combination, because now this methodology is purely computational. That means we have the same hardware as previously. So when we use this technique to study vesicle fusion again, we can see we can reveal small fusion pore structures as here, and we can also reveal they have a pore diameter like 70 or 75 or 80 nanometers on average, and they only last for like 10 milliseconds, which is a very transient event that being able to capture by this unprecedented spatial temporal combination. And if we look at the mitochondrial again, the inner membrane and outer membrane of mitochondrial labeled by Tom 20 and the mitotracker, we can see very clearly how this mitochondrial inner membrane and outer membrane, how they are, for example, here, how they are inner membrane and outer membrane fluctuating in live cells. And also we will be able to see how this mitochondrial more clearly interact with the ER structure, how they contact, how this contacts change the mitochondrial crystal structure. All this because of improved resolution. So in a short summary, we think now with the sparse deconvolution, the sparse sim, we can achieve like a better than 60 nanometer resolution live sample and still maintain this 2 milliseconds imaging speeds, which is very nice without any sacrifice in speed and toxicity. And this technology could also be applied to other types of super-resolution fluorescence microscopy, like a confocal or spinning disk confocal SIM microscopy. Here is another example. These are the TOM20 labeled mitochondrial outer membrane structure. On the left is what we got, a 3D layer of the mitochondria within a live cell, the raw data. On the right is actually the sparse deconvolved results. You can see much clearly structures, and they are actually, the quality is comparable with or even better than previous the 3D storm or the lattice light sheets. And the good thing with this kind of technologies, if we can apply to the confocal, then we can do multiple color as shown here. We can label the simultaneous 3-color microtubule in red, and lysosome in yellow, and peroxisome in blue. We can see how this moves in live cell, how this lysosome move on the microtubule and the contact with the peroxisome, how this process happens. And we can also easily switch to 4-color imaging of the same cell, 4 different color. And I skip this one, and the technology can also be applied to like a STED or confocal, point scanning confocal. You can see confocal like this, sparse confocal much clearly, and STED, and also sparse STED. And also can be applied to like a miniaturized 2-photon, as you can see here. These are these are fluorescent labeled prefrontal cortical region with all the spine structures, and we can see here different layers are colored in different colors. Left raw data RL deconvolution or sparse deconvolution. You will see after sparse deconvolution, we review more spine structure. Fine structures means improve of spatial resolution. So a short summary here is, now we have a general computational super-resolution method that reliably extends spatial resolution beyond physical limits posed by the hardware. If we combine it with 2D SIM that enables 60 nanometer resolution live cell at 564 Hertz frame rate, and if we combine it with the SD SIM, spin disk SIM, that will enable routine 4-color 3-dimensional imaging, live cell imaging. And it also can be combined with the wide field or STED or miniaturized 2-photon, all this kind of technology. And this is actually recently accepted by Nature Biotech. And this message is, I think we learn is, this is a theoretically impossible case, but we somehow get it to work. And I think I have only 7 minutes left, so I quickly go through the final point is, fluorescence image can only have high contrast because it only highlights this structure. But in order to see the holistic view, we need to some imaging methodology like EM, but in live cell. So we collaborate with Kebin Shi in physics department to develop this SR-FACT, which is a technology to use a light passing through the your sample, and because of the sample have different organelle, have different diffraction index, so the light will be have different phase. So by recording all this phase and to do reconstruction, we can get a three-dimensional diffraction index distribution within live cells. And by combining with our fluorescence superresolution microscopy, now we think we can see the forest, the holistic view of the forest, and also the specific trees we want to see within this live cell. So this is what we will see with our system. Without any label, you see many subcellular structures. For example, this are mitochondrial, and this are ER structure, and this are chromosome structures during cell division. And so with all this known, that without any labeling, because of the improved resolution and contrast, we see how a cell divided in 3D, because it's a intrinsically volumetric methodology. And we can see many interesting organelle interactions or contacts, and finding new organelles. So added together, we want to propose that by having two different modality, fluorescence and label-free, then we can call it a holistic view. So we can have a live cell organelle interactome. So that would be very nice complementary to recently emerge high throughput single cell analysis like genomics, transcriptome, proteomics. All this technology only works on fixed cell or dead cells, but our imaging will provide dynamic info. So finally, I want to use 2 or 3 minutes to say the last words. I think with the super-resolution imaging available, we want to push forward its application to make it readily applicable. So we need to make the technology as widely accessible as possible. So we have also our commercial products, which are very nicely and with this nice feature of live cell real-time super-resolution imaging in experiments. And also we want to apply it to the disease condition. So we collaborate, we use this, we propose a concept of live cell super-resolution pathology, because pathology is to study how disease happen, progress, how we treat the disease, and conventional pathology rely on this kind of conventional microscope of limited resolution, fixed sample, little molecular information. So we collaborate with Dr. Jingming Wang. He studied a disease called PMD. It's a rare genetic disorder of central nervous system with no cure. And the message is people know that this genetic disorder originated from this protein called PLP1 and different, but the difficulty is even people know the mutation on this protein. What people don't know why the different mutation on the same protein will lead to different phenotype in patients, which is a spectrum. Why they didn't know that? So we use super-resolution imaging different mutations originated from the patient. We overexpress these vectors in the cell lines and examine their subcellular localization with to check their localizations and dynamics. We can classify 3 types of distribution as shown here, which matches the clinical diagnosis of this patient perfectly. You can see here from left to right is classical, transitional, and conatal. Conatal is the most severe one. And our classification based on single cell supralution image are also like this. In addition to a nice correlates of the cellular phenotype with the disease on patient phenotype, the cellular study also tells us the mechanism. Here on the very right, this protein, this mutation get retained in ER. On the middle, this protein get a mistarget to lysosome. On the very left, this protein has a vesicle trafficking defects. So a disease become a very classical vesicle trafficking problem. And having had the mechanism, then we can use a drug. We can screen for the drug that may help these patients. As you see here, when we use a drug called curcumin, we can actually reverse the most severe phenotype in the cells, and this curcumin also can be applied to the patients. So we are ready to do that. We are in the meantime to do that. So we argue that a concept of live cell supralution pathology, which could be a very useful tool to review underlying mechanism for disease and help prognosis and precision targeting drug screening. In some way, it may provide a clinician irreplaceable tool for disease diagnosis and treatment screening. So finally, the take-home message is, I think, is live cell supralution microscopy provides the spatial temporal information that cannot be obtained by any other methodologies. And for our sparse deconvolution, the sparse 2D sim or SD sim, I think achieved the best combination of spatial temporal illusion for live cell imaging. And by going to fluorescence and label-free dual mode, SR microscopy provides holistic information in live cell, which may bridge between single cell omics studies and whole body phenotypes. And finally, if we can apply this technology to pathology that may hold the key to review disease etiology and possible precise drug screening. Finally, I want to end my talk with this poem from Emily Dixon. She actually wrote that if I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life that aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting rotting up to his net again, I shall not live in vain. So I was trained as a biomedical engineering major. So I think to be able to help others would be my best interest and role. And if we can somehow apply this supralution imaging not just to the fundamental research, but also to the disease, to the pathology, that may give the people the most benefits after all. And this work, all this work are collaborations with all my colleagues from different universities and institutes like 浩宇里、可冰师、谭山、王敬敏、纪伟、宋宝亮、丁宝全、毛恒、刘艳梅、王爱明, and 陈星、西鹏, also 西鹏, and also Peace Chen. And that's all. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Chen, thanks a lot for your great talk. It's enlightening and educational. I truly appreciate your mission-driven attitude to research with high impact to the society. So I believe with the powerful tools developed by your group, I think many interesting and important phenomena in biological system will be reviewed, which will help us understand many things in microscope in a level beyond what we can reach today, and ultimately change the medical research landscape, as you said. So let's take some questions from the audience. The first question is from Lily in Beijing. And the question is, he is wondering when you apply these approaches to enhance the resolution,
yeah.
how did you do the calibration? Or in other words, do you need any other reference?
Yes, that's a very good question. Actually, that's a question our reviewer have been chasing us for a very long time. Yeah, how do you know? So I think the answer is simple. So so when we do the deconvolution, we need to know when to stop in order not to have the artifacts, right? So we argue that we stop when also apply our Nyquist sampling criteria. Means if your pixel size, like for example, if your pixel size is 30 nanometer, your resolution is 60 nanometers, something like that. If you see structures smaller than that scale, then you know there's artifacts. You know that you over deconvolve the process. So we use that kind of criteria to guide our deconvolution process.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. The second question is from Zheng Hongdu from Zhejiang University. He said, thanks for the wonderful talk. I would like to ask whether all samples have the feature of sparsity and whether sparse deconvolution of large tissue samples is effective.
Yes, that's also a very good question. I don't have time to go in detail, but actually we have a data show that so the sparsity we are used is relative sparsity. It's not absolute sparsity. So it can deal with different samples. We actually have an example show, for example, if we loaded a cell with calcium indicator, used its dark shadow to highlight organelle structure, in that kind of sample, which is of course not sparse itself, it can also be improved by our sparse deconvolution algorithm as well. Yeah. So I think we show many examples. We show that as far as the sample we have tested, they are applicable. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot for the answer. So the third question is from Marcus. He said, when measuring the resolution of SIM, which I believe is structured illumination microscopy or other imaging system, the aberration may mislead the final measurement. Is the technology suitable for sequencing?
Yes, that's also a good question. I think from two parts. The first part I would say is how do you quantify the resolution. So that's why we use FRC, which is borrowed from the EM. I think it's a relatively objective resolution criteria. On the second part would be, can we trust it? Are we making artificial structures out of it? So in that sense, I think it's related to the first question. That also means how when should you stop stop your iteration time? That's also come back to the first answer. You should stop when you see structures not supported by your Nyquist sampling criteria. Yeah, if we follow that rule, I think we are stay on the safe side. Yeah.
Thanks, Professor Chen. Because of the limited time, we will move on to the panel discussion. But before I introduce the panelists, I just want to let you know that currently we have 26,000 audience. I would say that ICANX is really a great platform to promote our scientists. Yes. So our first panelist is Professor Penshi. He is a professor in College of Future Technology, Peking University in China. He is an expert in optical super resolution microscopy technologies, and he has published over 70 scientific papers in peer-reviewed journals, including Nature, and holds 19 issued invention patents, which is an impressive record, including 4 US patents. And also he is not only just a productive scientist, but also an active leader in the community. He's currently on the editorial board of 5 SCI index journals such as Light, Science and Applications, and Advanced Photonics. And he's also the managing editor for Light, Science and Applications, Beijing office, in charge of news and views section of the journal. Our second panelist is Professor Ewan Mcleod. He's from the Wine College of Optical Science at the University of Arizona as of August 2021. His interest lies at the intersection of optics, nanoscience, and soft biomaterial science. He has published more than 35 papers on those topics in peer-reviewed journals and has been awarded 5 patents with a major contribution in the area of high-speed varifocal lenses based on acoustic modulation, lens-free holographic imaging of nanoparticles, viruses, and biomarkers, and the use of optic tracer in fabricating micro and nanostructure materials. And it's worth noting the tunable acoustic gradient index lenses co-invented by Professor Mcleod has received numerous innovation awards, including a 2013 R&D 100 Award, a 2013 SPIE and Photonics Media Prism Award, and the 2017 Thomas Alva Edison Patent Award. And more importantly, this patented technology is now fully licensed by Mitutoyo Corporation, which is also known as Riben Sanfeng, and commercially sold. He won an NSF Career Award in 2021. So the last one I want to introduce is our ex-challenger, because Alice told me one of the motivations to have ICANN's talk is not only disseminate the science, promote the scientists, but also motivate young scientists. And Shaina is one of them. And he's currently a postdoc in the Department of Medical Engineering at Caltech under the supervision of Professor Li Hong Wang, which is a world-renowned leader in the field of photoacoustic imaging. Dr. Shai received his PhD in System Design Engineering from the University of Waterloo, Canada in 2017. He is a recipient of Micro Nano Device Contest Award for the Canadian Microelectronics Corporation in 2018, and the Best Paper Award of the International Society for Optics and Photonics in 2021. And his interests include functional photoacoustic imaging, functional ultrasound imaging, and the micro-machine ultrasonic transducer technology. So following the tradition with the panel, we will start the question from the ex-challenger. So, and Dr. Shaina, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Yang. And it's a wonderful talk from Dr. Chen. I really appreciate that we have the opportunity to listen to just wonderful talk. So my question is something similar to the previous audience. When you define when you use the sparsity and continuity to reconstruct the super resolution image using your sparse deconvolution technology, how do you balance? I mean, how do you determine the effect weighting from these two different perspectives? For example, how much weighting is for the sparsity and how much weighting for the continuity? For example, when you have a large continuous structure, you have some sparse points on the top. How do you distinguish that using these two algorithms?
Well, thank you, Shuai. This is a very nice question. You know, this question also come from the reviewer hunting us all over for for a very long time. So we have a very detailed protocol in our preprint in the Nature preprint sites to say how we choose these parameters to get optimal reconstruction results. And also we have to admit that that for each image you have to tune a little bit these parameters, which is kind of troublesome for many researchers. But we have provided a guideline with all the examples there. And also And also, if you incorrectly use these parameters, that may lead to not be able to resolve the structure, or not be able to or be able to create artifacts. That's also possible. So it's critical to adjust these two parameters. But finally, I would also like to say that our methodology is kind of deterministic. That means once you have the two selected parameter, you will know the result will be the same. So in this sense, it's different from like a deep learning methodology, which is essentially a black box. But our method is actually deterministic, and so people can fiddle around. So we have the open source code and all the instructions. You can play around with these parameters, select what you think would be the correct one, and if later prove wrong, then you could go back to the original data and redo this process, choose another set of parameters. So that's we are actually kind of sorry for this. This is a little bit complicated computational parameters, but it had to be. I think that is the trade-off. That is actually a trade-off for the improved resolution. So we did not. I didn't say that this method is actually getting everything out of nothing. Okay, we have the prior knowledge here, and in order to make it work, we actually have the trade-off that we have several parameters. You need to tune, fine-tuning. You need a fine-tuning. This is a trade-off.
I got you. Thank you very much.
Great. So,
Yeah.
Dr. China, do you have any other question?
I have a very general question. I mean, you talked about the neural network or artificial intelligence. Do you foresee that this kind of a technology or algorithm that combine with your technology that further improve the selection of the parameters, to make it more intelligent?
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. I think it's definitely is highly likely that if we we could have a neural network to learn how people choose and then to artificially choose for other people's. Of course, your network will also possibly learn the teacher's bias, of course, but that's also the cost. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. So let's move on to our panelist. So Professor Penshi, what's your question?
Sure. I actually have two questions. Shall I start with one by one or two in parallel?
One by one, that'd be great.
Okay, so first, congratulations, Liangyi, for your really pioneering work and a very inspiring talk. I noticed that you have started a company to commercialize this exciting technology. So can you share with us some of your opinion on why you choose this path?
So yes, that's also a very good question. I think the reason is very simple. I think a technology could only be widely applicable if it's commercialized. Otherwise, it will be staying in our institute and we just collaborate with other people. But you don't get the impact you want. You want the technology to be as widely usable as possible. So that's why, yeah.
So my following second question is, can you share with us some of the hard time or exciting moments during this instrumentation process?
You mean the commercialize?
Commercializing, yeah.
I think the hard time would be that the hard time is the commercialize. It's difficult and it doesn't generate paper. You are entangled with details of the hardware perfection, and also very importantly software perfection. For example, our software has undergone now like 1,600 revisions in 1 year. So all these efforts are done, cannot be done in academic institute because there's no publication of any paper out of this. But these are very important for the system to be robust and to be easily usable by the users. So it can only be done by like a large company or startup company. Yeah.
And is there any exciting moments that
exciting moment? I think exciting moment. I talked to my colleague who do all this he put all his time, Dr. Hen Mao, for the company. I told him that I told him that if it's not so good, I will say nothing about it. But if it is really good, then I will definitely say good words on it. So by the time I actually see, he showed me the final products, all this all outcasting and all the software and all this new functionality. I think, oh, that's very exciting. I think, okay, I now can share with other people. I can tell them that it's as good as any other commercial products. I think that's the excitement, time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. So let's move on to Professor Ewan Mcleod. So what are your questions?
Oh,
thank you, Professor Chen, for that great talk. You had beautiful images there
and great work. So one question I had was the sparsity and continuity in some senses seem like opposites, because one is promoting a sparse image, or one is promoting a continuous image. So why is it that they don't cancel each other out when you apply both of them together?
That's also a very good question. Very insightful. Very insightful. I say so. Our sparsity, in 2009, there's a couple of like 2 or 3 papers from Israel physicist or mathematician talking about sparsity may improve spatial resolution in principle, but our approach is actually different. So that's why I show in the first place that RL, Richardson-Lucy deconvolution, can improve resolution if there is no noise. So this is very important. So we have 2 steps. The sparsity and the continuity is to enforce the template, I would say the template for the later deconvolution, iterative deconvolution. So the sparsity will enforce that to make the sample, to make your fluorescence image a little bit more sparse. But the continuity is also important because they will enforce continuity to remove the noise. If you don't do that, your noise also will be sparse. So these 2 prior knowledge has to be combined to get, I will call later a template for the later iterative deconvolution. If we didn't do that, then just start with the iterative deconvolution, then your iterative deconvolution will lead to erroneous artifacts. Yeah.
Thank you. So another question I had was I know in studies related to sparsity and compressive sensing, a lot of times there's a basis transform first. So something like a wavelet transform or anything like that. Have you tried doing that pre-processing to your images before applying sparsity?
That's also a good question. So in the preprint, because it's not official out yet, but in the preprint you'll see that we could have a background subtraction step. We have included in the package, but we think most of the time we don't need that, except for very densely labeled structure. Okay. And also by including that, if we use that feature, we may also get attack because people say, oh, you may just automatically clipping the background, clipping the signal. So we are very cautious not to do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Those are my two questions. And once again, a great talk. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We still have a few minutes. So actually, I want to also ask some question. The first question is relevant to Dr. Shaina. And yeah, because we know he is in a different field, photoacoustic imaging, right? Yeah. So Professor Chen, can you comment on the two different imaging technologies? Are they complementary to each other, or is there any advantage to integrate this optical imaging and photoacoustic imaging together?
Yes, I think that's a very good question. And I think the different technology have different strengths. For example, for the photoacoustic imaging, I think for what Shuai has done is to use it on the human patients, the activity of the neuronal activity in human. I think this is amazing, and also by enable this kind of modality, you can do paradigms that like a functional MRI cannot done, right? So in that sense, I think every technology have its advantage and also disadvantage. So if in some way we can combine together, we should get a better combination to deal with all complicated scenarios. Yeah.
I see. Okay, the second question actually is relevant to what Professor Penshi just said. Mm-hmm. I just heard that you had a company now. That's very exciting because, as you said, to really show the broad impact of our science to the real world, commercialization is one of the best way, right? And as one of the key inventor of the technologies, I bet you play an important role in the company. So how do you balance your time and effort? And now on both sides, industry and academia, do you have something to say to our young generation of scientists? So maybe your statement might motivate them to take the path as you have been doing.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. You that's also very good question. Very nice suggestion. Actually, I think to move into company is kind of it's an accident. It's accident. I would say to go into a company to have a star company to make this instrument is it's not something I planned before. But once I was in, then I cannot take out anymore because you already been absorbed in. So you can only move forward and forward, but in the end, I think it has also its payback time because now you have your instrument, you see its future is close to your hands. The future you foresee, you make it more likely to happen. I think that's fulfilling, yeah. And in order, I think for it to be really used for the clinical setting, you need to have this ability. So that's what I might take. So currently, I have a colleague who actually take over all the ordinary running and all the things. I have a colleague help me, and I'm also mostly concerned for the technology side, and also sometimes to see the investor, yeah, because to show up as a scientist to tell them the story, yeah. So probably 30% of the time, and 70% of the time still academic still. And finally, regarding your suggestion of what should I tell the younger generation, I would say that when I was trained as a biomedical engineering background, we are always told that we should do something useful, not just publish paper. So I think it's good that we will see what we develop actually turn into something useful. But for the young researchers, they may need to consider the timing what is the timing for them to do that? If they want to pursue for example, their tenureship, they may do it after they acquire tenureship, because going to the business side also consume a lot of energy. Yeah, time and energy.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Professor Chen, thanks again for spending time with us today. In addition to your great science, what has truly impressed me is your passion in your work, the passion to make a difference to the world with the work you have done. And I believe your work will inspire many others to follow your footsteps, to do something for the society and make the world much better because of us. And I liked a lot the mission-driven attitude to do science. I really appreciate it, and thanks a lot. I will definitely follow your work in the future and hopefully learn more from your papers. And I wish you the best for your startup. Hopefully one day it'll go IPO and it will see the true impact of your science to the world. That will be great, one of the best example for us.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks for all of you who is behind the screen listening to this amazing talk. And I as Alice, will follow this discussion to introduce more in the future.
Okay, thank you, Lan. Thank you, Professor Chen. Thanks for this wonderful talk and a wonderful panel. We really learned a lot. Like Lan said, that we really are looking forward to, see the IPO for Professor Chen's company, and also, to win the big name for
technology. I think both from science and technology part, the work is so important. I'm really glad to have seen something here from mainland China. They contribute to the whole world, and they, like Lan said, that with our efforts to make the world much better. Yeah, I think that's all the scientists hard working for this. That's a target. That's a dream. Let's keep on going. This was our certification as Euro. We really appreciate your high tech and your great contribution in this field. And we want to deliver this certification to you, Professor Liangyi. And I think I will meet you sometime in the campus. I give you the hard copy. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Really great job.
So we continue for this ICANX talks. So next week we will have Terry Autumn on this stage. It was from Northwestern University. She is a superstar and she is editor-in-chief of Nano Letters. So many of the people in the in science part know this journal. And she is editor-in-chief. She is a superstar in this field. And next week we will welcome my colleague, Professor Jack Dish, to chair all these sessions. And I will join as a panel because I want to ask Terry some questions, be a female scientist. Yeah, we also will have Martin. Martin as a super young scientist. He delivered a talk, last year at ICANX as a rising star. And we will have Ya Hui as our challenger, was from Shanghai Jiao Tong University. So this was the next week talk. We hope you keep, looking and ICANX talks every Friday. That's a world-class course. So welcome everyone, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And that's the end of this week. And see you next week. Bye-bye.